Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring our January 19, 2021, 2 p.m. Commissioners Budget Goal Setting Work Session to order, please. If you choose to do so, I ask that we rise for a moment of silence, pledge of allegiance, and a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we come today to do the business of the county on the behalf of the citizens. We ask you to come to this day to give us forethought, insight, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that we do your will in the mind sight of man, but the understanding that we do what's best for the people that we serve. We ask these things. Amen. And for the pledge, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Before we get into conducting business, I'm going to turn it over and acknowledge Mr. Jones. He has some preliminary discussion that we're going to get into to format our meeting. Mr. Jones, you have the floor.
I'm not fully on the meeting yet, so I need to get onto the meeting first. I'll be right with you.
So while Mr. Jones is actually doing that, just want to acknowledge that we do have one school board member that's in attendance today. She doesn't want me.
Yeah.
Okay, what is that? Okay. Mr. Jones, just give me a cue when you're ready. Okay. Yes, sir. Like I said, we have one school board member that's in attendance, Ms. Victoria Lehman, has decided to join us today, and we do appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, you're going to see there's one item that's on our agenda that we were going to omit, and that is the discussion about the school board's capital needs. I spoke with Ms. Chairwoman Ebony Brain this afternoon, and there are some other preliminary things that they want to get done before they discuss it in detail with us. So we're going to eliminate that from our agenda discussion. They're going to come back for at a later date to their needs. I'm getting some feedback for some reason. Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Jones, you have the floor.
Sure, thank you, Chair. Please, I apologize for the delay. But before we got started this afternoon, I really just wanted to quickly provide a brief overview really of the purpose of today and the significance of today. And what we'd like to do for the board is to highlight significant issues and provide you an update on the current budget in hopes of informing your discussion later on today, where you're going to provide us an overall direction or priorities as we begin preparation for the fiscal year 22 budget. As you know, this is our most significant area of responsibilities as stewards of our local resources, and we create and put together a recommended budget for you over the course of a few months here. We'd like to get started sooner rather than later, so we can take the time we need to provide you with a document that we all can stand behind when you receive it later this spring. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have an update for fiscal year 2020 county audit report and mid-year update by Mr. Lee Faines, which is our finance director. Mr. Faines, how are you doing today, sir? Thank you. I believe we need to turn his mic on.
All right. I hope everyone is doing well.
Thank you, sir. You have the floor.
All right, we're going to start off with just a quick update on the audit. We have been in talks with the audit firm. Everything is on time. We will be completed by the end of the month. Everything is up to date. We're just waiting on the last figures. They will have it to us shortly. Next, we're going to go to the revenue report. In this, we created a spreadsheet just to show a quick synopsis of where we stand as of today. If you look at the end report at the bottom line, the grand totals, shows what we budgeted, what we spent year to date, and what's available. As you can see, at the midpoint, we have spent collected 63% of budgeted revenues. We are well on pace to all that we have. Having questions regarding the revenues. In this report, it details, shows the ad valorem taxes, sales taxes, and all the different funds. It shows where those funds stand as. Next, we're going to move over to the expense report. The expense report as well shows just a quick synopsis of where we stand as what we have spent thus far during the year. For instance, the first spreadsheet shows the general fund where we have expensed 44% of what we budgeted. And the next report shows the enterprise and capital funds that we budget, and we show that each one of these budget lines show that we have expense where we should be at midpoint of the year, and that we are well on point to stay within our budget. Everything is looking on the and if you have any questions regarding it, please feel free to ask.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Mr. Faines is asking if we have any questions or concern about his immediate report. Mr. Faines, if you just hold off, I'm gonna pause for about maybe a few minutes here, give the commissioners a chance to look over this document. And,
yes, sir.
And we'll go from there, okay? All right, the board, any questions or concerns you have about the commission's report? Mr. Faines, I do have one question for you, and that is in regards to sales tax. Do you see any immediate concerns when it comes to the impact of COVID-19 has had on our sales tax locally?
Just the bare minimum, not too much. That's just the bare minimum, not too much that jumps out to the eye. But Everything has still been steady. There's not have been a tremendous drop off or a tremendous increase. Everything has been pretty much steady.
All right. Ms. Hunt, you good? You good? Okay. Ms. Baker? Ms. Powell? You good? All right, thank you, Mr. Fangs.
Thank you all.
All right, we're gonna go right into our Warren County fiscal year 22 budget schedule. Mr. Jones?
Sure, thank you, Chair. And if I could, just with the budget reports that you received that shows our progress year to date, if you have some questions after the day, please feel free to contact myself or Mr. Faines. We can answer individual questions that you may have about our current year progress for the budget. Next, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about the fiscal year 22 budget schedule. We will be bringing some items to your attention for approval of some upcoming dates, and Ms. Pulley is actually going to help us with this item.
Sorry. The dates that you have in this packet, it basically just gives you a breakdown of some of the most important dates for the budget prep. It also has dates on here for our budget work sessions. Those will be on the February agenda for your approval. We do not have times beside those yet. So that's something that we'll discuss at that meeting. Okay. So the way that this is broken down, January 20th, tomorrow, all the budget materials will be distributed to the department heads, budget funding summary worksheets, and budget request forms. February 12th, department heads will return budget request forms to their Dropbox, which is what we'll be using to collect those reports. February 13th, the county manager, finance director, and budget team will begin the FY22 budget development. April 15th is very important. That's our end of year spending cutoff. All major operational purchases must be requisitioned by April 15th and spending cutoff with the exception of emergencies. On May 3rd, the annual budget presentation will take place during our regular board meeting. And for right now, we have on this schedule for May 12th as a budget work session, May 19th as a budget work session, and then June 7th will be the public hearing during our regular board meeting. June 16th, budget work session if needed. And June 21st is when we propose to have the special meeting to adopt the FY22 budget.
Okay, Mr. Jones, something that you did last year was very effective. I think you had maybe one-on-one talks with each commissioner before the budget. That was very effective. Is that something you're going to look towards doing this year?
Sure, thank you for reminding us. We absolutely can make sure that we have those discussions with each of you to make sure you have a good, thorough understanding of what we'll be moving forward.
Thank you. I think it was very effective, and I like that process. Thank you, Ms. Paul.
Thank you.
So Chair, if I could, so with the dates that Ms. Pulley has just identified for you, May 12th, May 19th, June 7th, June 16th, and then the June 21st special meeting. Ms. Pulley, is it correct that the board will need to consider these dates for approval at their next meeting? Okay. All right. So we have time allotted today. If you all need to check your calendars to see if those dates will work for you, then we have time to do that, to make sure those dates work for you all.
Okay. So no, I won't put a commissioner on the point right now. If you don't mind, we'll address this towards the end of our meeting, give you a chance to check your calendar. And then if it's without objection, we'll move to our February 1st meeting for approval. How about that? Are y'all okay with that? All right, so we'll come back to that. Thank you, Mr. Jones. We're going to fiscal year 21, fiscal year 26, capital improvement plan overview and major building repair projects updated. And this is presented by Ms. Duncan and Mr. Williams.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. I'm going to present from right here, if that's okay with you, Chairman, because I'm sharing my screen for the folks at home while I'm presenting. So give me just a second to share that screen. Okay, so we have been working on for the last little bit updating a capital improvement program draft that was previously in existence but had not been really attended to. And so Mr. Jones and I and Terrence and department heads have been reflecting on how to get that updated and how to use that as a consistent tool and a living document. And so I have marked it up a little bit for you on the screen and for the folks at home. The highlights and the arrows and stuff aren't actually in the draft document. But I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. A capital improvement program, a CIP plan, is a long-term plan for the county's major capital needs. And so this is for us to look at how our facilities and equipment and our other projects and non-recurring purchases, if they cost over $5,000, to be scheduled and funded over the next 5 years. And what this does here is it reduces the need for emergency unplanned expenditures. It's not to say they won't happen, but it hopefully reduces the need for them, and it helps us think in advance about construction and the priorities around our framework when it comes to our capital assets. And so plan, you're going to see a few different goals that have guided us in the CIP process. So we're looking at maintaining existing infrastructure, and this makes sure we're protecting our investments that already stand. We're looking at how we can expand the tax base for our current and future citizens. We're looking at managing growth. We're looking at providing our services. A lot of these are about providing our services in an efficient and safe manner. And then we're also looking at maintaining and improving the quality of life for our citizens and potential investors. So as you go through the CIP, on page 3, we break down certain funding priorities. And the idea here is that, you know, if you're presented with millions of dollars of capital projects for the next fiscal year, we want to make sure that you have metrics to understand, in case you can't fund them all or something needs to be put off for the next year, if it can be put off, you have certain metrics by which to measure that by. And part of that are looking at our funding priorities. So number 1, is it mandated by law or by you as a Board of Commissioners because of your policies or goals? Is it currently funded, or are there specific sources available for that funding? 3, is it a separate part of another project that's absolutely needed for that project to go on? Is it essential to our program implementation? Does it further your goals, our goals as a county for orderly growth, especially around our comprehensive land use plan? Is it self-supporting? Maybe it's an enterprise fund project. Does it take advantage of opportunities that exist now but wouldn't be available at a later date? And does it result in a more efficient, effective delivery of our county services? And you'll see how these priorities come into place later on. But again, this is a metric by which we measure these projects by. So they're broken down into objectives and project types. So it's either a public protection project, a maintenance project, a capital improvement project, or a project for strategic growth. And then it's broken down further into other categories. And then we'll outline the different elements of the project. Is it planning or design, land, vehicle construction, equipment and furnishings, or contingency? Again, this is an idea for you to see where county taxpayer dollars are going in terms of our capital improvement program and our capital investments. So the things that are not part of the CIP, just to be clear, these are not things that are ongoing or recurring in nature, like maintenance or repair costs. These are a part of our operating budget. It is different than our projects that you'll see here. So again, major non-recurring projects and major non-recurring purchases are what you're seeing in this plan. And just to be clear, this is not a budget. You do not adopt this as an ordinance. This is a planning tool. It's a strategic tool looking at the future. So we also outline in our CIP our debt service. I think this is important for you to know as you're looking out over the next 5 years for the capital improvement program. What kind of debt are we already servicing on our capital assets? So you can see here on page 6 of the CIP where we are on our remaining principal for certain projects. And this is as of this fiscal year that we are in. So at the end of, come June, at the end of this fiscal year, we should have $0 remaining, for example, on our animal shelter in the phase 1 of our rec complex. So again, it's a way for you to look at what debt you serviced previously and to know how you can reissue that debt maybe for future capital projects. This is very small font here on page 7, but what this is looking at the current fiscal year and then 5 years out. And this breaks down, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. This is where you see previously when I was going through the different elements and priorities and things like that, you see this reflected here. So for example, we start out with all of our buildings and grounds projects. And to be clear, this isn't necessarily everything that comes out of Terrence's budget as buildings and grounds director. It's just these projects are classified as buildings and grounds projects. And so in that first column, you see the department. You see the type of project it is. Is it a maintenance project? Is it a project for strategic growth? Is it a capital improvement project? And it is possible for something to be multiple ones. In fact, I would say that if a project checks off different project types, that's when you say this is something that we might really need to prioritize when we're planning for our budget. Project title column tells you, the details of what the project is, your elements, if it's construction, equipment, etc. Where the funding source is where the funds plan to come from, whether it's installment purchasing, general fund, enterprise fund, that kind of thing. And then you'll see outlined the total cost of the project and then what we have budgeted for the fiscal year. So some projects, especially if there's a project fund set up for it, you might see it budgeted over the course of several years. And this changes. So what we're looking at today, as we go into the budget planning process that Paula just walked you through, this is a conversation, an ongoing conversation that we need to be having with our department heads, with y'all, what sorts of things are we planning for in this next year? What do we need to be planning for over the years? And this is going to evolve. It won't look this way again when we bring it forward to you in a few months when you're looking at the proposed FY22 budget. The next page, just so and this is FY22 or FY21, excuse me, as we go into FY22 planning, again, this document will shift, but it allows you to see how much of your budget you are spending on capital expenditures. So again, page 9, and it breaks down by project category where we are. So for example, in FY21, we're spending $95,500 on buildings and grounds projects. That's how much we budgeted for. And so you can see our capital expenditures for this fiscal year that we're in are just at 4% of our budget. And then there's a graphic that shows down within the capital expenditures budget of the $1.3 million where those projects break down. And then the last part of the capital improvement program plan looks at the, this will be the upcoming fiscal year. So when you see this document in the next few months, this will give you a description of the FY22 projects. Right now on page 10, it's looking at the FY21 projects. And so what I've done here is I've put at the top again, we're breaking them down by category. So these are your buildings and grounds projects. putting in what the priorities are. I want you to remember that as you're looking at these. And then it gives you a little more description. So on page 10, for example, you see Board of Elections sidewalk improvements. This is something that we took care of this year. It's a maintenance project that involved construction. It addressed the priority of resulting in more efficient, effective delivery of county services. We appropriated $8,500 from the general fund. The issue is that the sidewalks at Board of Elections had several trip hazards, and if you don't fund it, what we want to do is give you the impact if canceled or delayed. And so we were looking at those sidewalks being a public safety risk during not just an election year, but a presidential election year. And so we know that there's going to be increased attendance. And so the next few pages break down by category the upcoming fiscal year capital expenditures. And so if you look on page 13, this is a good example. The Viper Tower repeaters, that's a project that you're all very familiar with. So the Viper Tower repeaters are a public safety project. It's a capital improvement. This is new equipment that we were purchasing, and it was also a public protection project. It's equipment, and you can see there it met 5 priorities that we have for funding. Priority 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8. We appropriated $175,000 from the general fund, and then we explained that the Firemen's Association had a FEMA grant for updated radios, but those radios could not be used until the tower upgrades were made. And so there you see the impact of canceled or delayed. So in a case like this, with the project that has 5 funding priorities addressed, you might say, this can't be delayed another fiscal year. This is something we really need to look at funding this year if we can. And we can see what the impact of canceling or delaying that is. And so this is a good example of how a capital improvement plan can really help you think about why do we need to fund something and what happens if we don't fund it. And it puts it all there in a strategic plan for you. And with that, unless you have any other questions, I'll wrap it up. But again, this is something we're going to be updating as we go through the budget process with department heads. You will see this again in your budget documentation, and this descriptor here will be for FY22.
Mr. Jones?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Duncan. Chair, we have identified this as a significant issue for the county. While the county has budgeted for capital improvement projects in the past, we have not had a vehicle by which we sort of annually look at these things for the long-term health of the county. And so we think that is a significant part of a comprehensive budget process. So we've done a couple of things. One, we've also created a budget book for you. And then this is the second piece where we pay more attention to our capital needs. And this will allow us to appropriately plan for long-term projects, appropriately budget for those projects as well over a number of years. And so while this isn't a budget document, we will ask you to approve it every year with the budget. And within our budget that we provide for you, the first year of this 5-year plan will be included in the budget. So you will be approving always the first year of the 5-year plan, and even some of the out years. If we want to establish a project, for example, that we know that we don't have the ability to pay for upfront, for example, we can establish a CIP project and start budgeting for that project. So when we do have enough funding, we can move forward with the construction, for example, of that particular item. So this is a significant accomplishment for us. I just wanted to make sure that we were able to explain that and to see if you had any feedback as well.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, anybody got any questions or concerns for Ms. Duncan, the county manager? I just need a little bit of clarification on something, if you don't mind. This is directed to anyone that can answer this for me. Of course, we have some issues with the courthouse, and I see that your 5-year plan incorporates some maintenance of capital improvements, which is, of course, the HVAC. One, I see that from 22 on to 26, there's $40,000 that's allocated towards a potential HVAC replacement, I guess?
What
Is it? I'm sorry, I'm on page 7, the very small font one.
So, well, Terrence can speak to it, but I just want to say to that, generally speaking, and especially for the folks at home, this is a planning document. And so we know right now this is something we need to plan for. So in Terrence's budget process in the upcoming months, we may need to get a more accurate quote and that kind of thing and update this for that. But it is a notification to you, so to
Right.
speak.
Wait, yeah, it's just that if I further clarify, I understand that numbers change, so I'm not holding to you the number. I just saw that it was a large sum of money for each year that's being earmarked for that. So that was one of the things that sparked my attention. So is it the HVAC is going to need to be replaced there?
Yes, it's actually, each unit on the inside, we've replaced our chiller as well as our boiler, but the inside units, the heat pumps, they all are, for lack of a better word, dilapidated. And just, it just takes, I know we can't do the whole entire building at one time, so that's what we did it on DSS. The same situation that we did at DSS, basically just take it and approach it as a year-by-year project.
Right, and I think that's excellent, I really do. Now, the other thing, of course, dealing with the courthouse, and me and Mr. Jones has been talking. Mr. Jones, you want to interrupt me?
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
I think I know where you were headed with that.
Okay, all right.
The next line has $50,000 a year. And so, as you know, we've had some challenges with the courthouse. And Mr. Williams has been able to get a contract in place. We have an engineering firm that will do a total assessment of the courthouse.
Okay.
Identify all the capital needs and repairs that we need to make. And we know that they're going to be significant because the building is a historical building. And so this is just an idea that we're guesstimating will be what we need over the next few years to try to make those improvements that are identified from the upcoming report we'll be receiving.
Right. Well, thank you. Actually, my question is built on excitement. You got a question, Mr. Hunt? You had a question?
Yes, were you done?
You can go ahead, sir.
Okay. Because it's a different subject. That's all.
Oh, okay, well, let me finish it there, okay. So, but my question is built on excitement about the courthouse, so I really do appreciate y'all taking the forethought in getting this done. My last question would be, what is facility, on the EMS, what is Satellite Facility number 5? Where is it?
So this document is an updated document from what previously existed. And so
Okay.
I took previous projects from, I believe it was Ms. Worth's capital improvement plan and put them here. And so this may be something that we, take off. And this has to be a conversation with EMS and you guys, but it's on there for now. So you can see what was previously, because the previous capital improvement document that she made went through FY22. And so I left it on there because it was to keep consistent with that document. But that, we've not had any discussion about
Well, like I said,
the
it
construction of
just,
that satellite facility.
I mean, it was, over 3 years, of course, $600,000, so I just want to know what that is, so. Okay, all right, you can get, if it's gonna be gone, I mean, we'll be gone?
I don't know, you tell me.
I think it's something that we need to take off. I think it's something that should be a part of the planning process because in the Manson Jewelry area, there's a need for a satellite EMS facility up there because between the one that we have and getting out near the Woodlake College, that's quite a bit of a distance, so it's something that needs to be considered. So I wouldn't necessarily say, let's take that off right now. Let's have more discussion. The other thing that I wanted to add, Chair, if I may,
Yes, sir, absolutely.
it's what's the procedure to making recommendations or adding to this? And the reason I'm saying this, I don't think it was ever put in the capital improvement plan, but some considerations, or we had talked about putting an HVAC system in the John Graham rec facility. So that could be a multi-purpose facility that could be used year-round for emergencies or whatever the case may be. And we don't have to go in details now, but I'm just asking if something comes up that we might want to consider, what's the procedure to,
Sure.
get that added?
Right. And so that's a great question. And that's the reason we are doing planning now, so that we don't have these things sort of pop up for us. And so, as Ms. Duncan has mentioned, we will start the conversation off with our department directors, asking them to identify those needs that they may have. And so that will go into what we put before you. So if today you all are having your budget goal setting, if you have ideas like that, the issue that you were raising would be a perfect one to put on the table. We think that would be a CIP project we need you to consider as you're putting together the budget. And so whether that's through direct conversation with me, whether that comes through the Recreation Commission, if you have an item that you want us to consider, we are in the budget creation process right now. So by all means, get those things to us.
You good? All right. All right. Are we done with that segment, or y'all got something else to add?
Yes, I just got an update on my mid-year update for our major buildings and repairs.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we just wanted to go through and let you know that we the stuff that we allotted for, we got some of it done. We got our sidewalks at Board of Elections done already.
Okay.
We've got a parking lot behind Finance and Health Department completed. And we also repaired some control issues down at our sheriff's office with their HVAC system. To be completed coming up, we got our last round of the capital improvement at DSS we were just talking about. Their last 5 water source heat pumps will go in this year, as well as the engineering situation we have at the courthouse coming up too. And whenever we get their recommendations, we have money allotted to start on the actual envelope problems that we have.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions on any of that?
I don't. I just say that despite a lot of the financial challenges that we have, y'all guys do an exceptional job keeping our facilities up, and we really do appreciate it, and it's definitely recognized. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Jones, are you done? You good with that? Okay, Ms. Duncan, you good? All right, thank you. All right, I think this is something that we may, y'all, it's scheduled for a break now because we're going to be skipping over the superintendent. Do y'all need a break, or should we continue on, or how you feel about it at this point? Ms. Baker said she's nodding here, keep moving. So y'all know I'm gonna listen to Ms. Baker. So y'all outvoted on that already. Okay. So, Mr. Jones, we're gonna go right into your strategic plan, mid-year update, and you have the floor, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So you have before you a copy of the strategic plan that we worked on last year. And I think this is, we've tried to, over the past 2 years, work toward making this a more substantial document so that you all feel comfortable using it as a strategic planning document. A strategic planning document does have a few more elements than this actually has, but we are using the word interchangeably here. And so what we're going to do is focus on the goals and action items that you all came up with from that strategic planning session that you all had last February. I think we were together in February, right before, that was our last sort of meeting together before we went into coronavirus mode here. And so you came up with 6 goals and some action items. And so we just wanted to take the time to just sort of update you, since we are at mid-year, to talk about our progress, what still needs to be accomplished, going forward, we're going to try to make sure that we have this as part of what you talk about and consider monthly as a board when you are meeting. That really has been our challenge. How do we keep this before you, before our staff, in a manner that it becomes a part of our daily work progress, so that we're also making sure that we are continuing to keep these items as top of mind. The first one we have is complete the broadband project by 2026. We had 2 action items that we wanted to do. Because we know the broadband project will be a multi-year project, we wanted to first select the provider, and then 2, develop a funding strategy that allows us to have a good project in place. And so, as you know, we went through an RFP process that took a bit of time last year. We actually were at the point where we were able to review and in a position to make a recommendation to you all. However, there was a curveball thrown, and that is the federal government had an auction process that we thought would be best for Warren County to leverage our dollars with any existing federal dollars that may be available, which would allow us to reach more of our residents with the broadband system. And Ms. Duncan, you can help me if I misspeak, all right? And so I know this project is gone on for a while, and I'm saying all this just to say we are making progress. So that federal auction process has ended. There was a quiet period where we couldn't speak to the people who would be bidding on Warren County in that federal auction process. The federal government has awarded to a provider, and there is now an additional quiet process that runs through the end of January. At the end of January, we will feel more comfortable informing you all who the provider is and who we will be working with to negotiate broadband implementation here in Warren County. So we've made great progress. Ms. Duncan, would you like to add anything?
That's good. I just want to reiterate something and just say it in a different way, because we know that folks, we get calls all the time. Folks are very eager to know where we are with broadband. So just to say it one more time, but in a different way, is because, and it was helpful for me to think about it like this too. If we did not work with the provider that the federal government who won the federal government auction, essentially that funding would be able to really dwarf what we'd be able to subsidize any other provider. And we didn't want to get in a position where we weren't leveraging our investment as much as possible and making sure that we were working with with the company that was going to be rolling out our entire network for our entire county. It's just a way to make sure that we're responsibly and most effectively supplementing that provider. So again, I just said the same thing Vincent said, but I think it's important that folks know that we've not been lagging. We've just been waiting until we can legally talk to this provider, which we're going to do as soon as we can in February.
And if I could, thanks, Charlotte, that was a good point. And I think it's also helpful for our residents and for you all to know that the funding that we're trying to access are funds that the federal government has set aside specifically for rural communities like ours. So it's the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund is what we'll be using from the federal government to subsidize our Warren County funding as well. So goal 1, we are pretty well on our way to having some good progress by the end of the fiscal year. And so we are certainly proud of that. That's been significant for us. Goal 2 is to develop a long-term water replacement option. And I'll slow down. Are there any questions about goal 1 in broadband? Okay.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for goal 1 being where it is right now, because despite, COVID-19 has definitely brought to surface a lot of issues when it comes to rural community and broadband. A lot of jobs, professions are going to be done online. And for us to be a major player as attracting the public to live here in our population count, we're going to need broadband and effective broadband at that. So I'm glad to see that. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
All right, thank you. Next, we have goal 2, which is to develop a plan for long-term water replacement options by February 2021. There is still some work needed here. Items 2A and 2B, we talked about a report on any strategies that we have developed. And long-term water replacement options really pays attention to the fact that we have a water system that's aged at this point. We are at the time in our system's development where we need to pay closer attention to what are we doing to revitalize the older parts of our system. And so we want to make sure that we are paying full attention to that and don't find ourselves in a position where the majority of our system is at an age where we find ourselves behind the curveball and budgeting for that long-term replacement. So that's an item we still need to work on. The water rate increase was really tied to our project that we have with the Carl Lake Regional Water System. And that's something that we'll be talking with you about a little later on. But we wanted to be proactive to see what we could do to make sure that we were able to participate in the Carl Lake Regional Water System project, which would allow the county to double the amount of water that we have for use for future development here in the county. 2C and D was to attend trainings related to webinar and infrastructure grant funding. I know that our interim director, Mr. Robertson, has attended training. And 2D was about adding an additional bulk water customer. We do have interest in customers who want to purchase water from Warren County. And so those discussions are underway, let's just say, right? Any questions about that? Okay. Goal 3 is to present a conceptual plan for creating an intergenerational multi-purpose recreation and wellness facility by March 2021. We have had some preliminary discussions with communities that have done a similar facility, but this is one where we still need some additional work on. So. Goal 4, complete 50% of our recreation master plan recommendations by 2024. And this has 6 objectives under it. And the first objective is a call to action for recreation providers. We actually were able to extend opportunities for recreation providers in the community. We will have to revisit this. We did get some interest, but not as much as we had anticipated or would like to see. And so we're going to have to go back and take a look at how we engage our residents around recreation. So we know that we have a talented group of residents, and so we want them to feel comfortable that they would be able to offer the community some recreation options. Update our recreation master plan and develop a recreation strategy. Those are 4B and C are all items that we are still working on. 4D talks about interagency meetings
Mr.
twice
Jones.
a year.
Mr. Jones.
This is with all, yes.
Excuse me. I'd like to go back to recreation real quick. And I'm surprised he didn't speak up because he had a lot of discussion about it. But I would really love to see a little more conversation with the school system about expanding recreation. There may be some collaboration. We may be able to have a discussion with them. Hopefully we can. Commissioner, what do you think? Just in general, you know.
think we definitely need to involve, school system and possibly Boys and Girls Club as well, and the school, that's that school system and corporate extension. So, but definitely the school system.
Okay. All right, thank you. We appreciate that feedback.
Thank you.
Before you guys move on, not only the school system, but of course you'll also hear, the argument for the senior population, since that's a huge percentage of our citizen pool. So yeah, they definitely need to be considered as well.
Ms. Pierce, can you say that?
No, I know you were asking Commissioner Hunt whether he thought it was a great idea to include the school system and everything. And I know, our youth do want to be involved more with recreation, but also understand that our senior population is a huge part of our citizen pool. So they also need to be considered as well.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Sure, thank you for that feedback, Commissioner Pierce and Commissioner Hunt. And so that's actually the reason why we had this on here. We wanted to start the conversation with our own internal departments, recreation, library, cooperative extension, the senior center, to make sure they were having conversations so that we wouldn't miss opportunities to address recreation from a holistic perspective. And so adding the school system and the senior center as well, I think is right on target with what we're trying to do. So this is an area that we are still working on, and so we are halfway through the year, but we will pay some additional priority to these so that we can have some progress before the end of the year. With that, okay, we will move on to Goal 5. Goal 5 was about increasing employee morale, and it says it was a 5-year plan, so it was through 2026. The first objective has us developing a way to sort of annually check in with our staff to find out where they are, what ideas they have, what does employee morale look like. As you know, we had Ms. Foster come on board in September, and she's a dynamic director for us. She has been working on this item. We did not finish it by December, but expect to be able to have a survey of employees by February or March at the latest. Develop a comprehensive retention plan is one that we're still working on. Creating for continuing education. Those are all things that we are still working on. Objective 5D, develop group training and professional development. We are currently speaking with a provider that has done this type of work with organizations throughout the state, local governments, as well as some state agencies. And we hope to be able to kick off that professional development training for our staff pretty soon. And the last one was about just looking at different incentive options that we may be able to offer our employees to encourage them to go out and seek training options and certifications that will allow them to bring the expertise back to the county to help us make sure that we are operating in a way that's always forward-thinking and looking at the trends in government to make sure that we are staying as closely aligned with how services are being provided in a professional manner. Right. And the last one is Goal 6 was creating opportunities to formally hear from our municipalities and the school board. You all thought this was a very important one for us to further engage our other elected officials and as the county interacts with all of these agencies. We had set out a few ways of making that happen, trying to have some joint meetings. We have not been able to have any of those this year. I think things sort of changed as soon as we created this, but there are virtual ways that we can meet and keep these going. And so we will make that a priority the last half of this year to see if we can get moving on some of those meetings. 6B was about building a liaison model between the school, the schools and this board, just to make sure that we are having some continual conversations with each other. And so we have not been able to work on that. We expect that we will be able to work on that as well. And then the last one was establishing a regular meeting schedule for us to do the same as we would do with the school board with our municipalities. So I think these are all significant issues for us, and we will be looking to have some conversations with you all about how we schedule those things before we get to the end of our fiscal year. And that concludes our update, and unless there are questions.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, any questions for Mr. Jones? That means you're spot on, Mr. Jones.
Sounds good. We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
All right. Let's lead off with you again, Mr. Jones. Operation Initiative impacting the budget. This is a discussion. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. So Chair, what we did in this section was, what we have identified here are just some significant operational issues that we know will impact the budget next year. This is not everything. When we have the conversations with the department directors, they're going to give us more, but these are the things that we know off the bat that we're going to have to work with next year, or would like to, when we're building next year's budget. So we wanted to bring it to your attention, because after this, what we want to do is hear from you all, given what you've heard today from top to bottom. Now, what do you all want to give us direction on, or what would you like to see as we start building the budget for next year? And so with that said, what we'll do is talk about some of these operational items. And the first one is broadband. We know that's been a significant issue for the board, for the county. As we just mentioned previously, we are making great progress on that. And what I'd like to bring to your attention is, in the budget, we have $175,000 budgeted for broadband. And so we expect that we're going to need to budget some additional funding for broadband in the next fiscal year. And there is a couple of reasons why. As you know, back in September, we spoke with you about an opportunity that came up with the state of North Carolina. There was a great grant opportunity that we applied for, and we applied for that and partnered with River Street. And if they, in fact, were to receive the great grant, we would be responsible for matching the dollars that they received to the tune of $250,000. And so while we currently have $175,000 budgeted, there is a $75,000 difference. We could certainly use funds from this year. We could certainly budget additional funds from next year. So that's one thing, the great grant. But then two, Ms. Duncan just mentioned that we have a provider that we're working with, and that is going to be the full-scale broadband project being implemented. And so based on what they received, their costs for building out broadband, that's going to dictate what we're able to provide. And so that $175,000 was budgeted, anticipating that we would probably have to finance something around $2 million to have a full-scale project here in the county. And so we can continue on, but we expect that this spring we will find out exactly where we will be, what we will have to fund for that broadband project, and reflect that in your fiscal year 22 budget. Is there anything that I left out, Ms. Duncan? Any questions from the board on broadband? Okay.
Can I add one thing, Vincent? Just again, for the sake of the folks watching, so the auction that we keep referring to was for certain census tracts in our county that the FCC has deemed as underserved or unserved. And so when this provider rolls out, just to kind of manage expectations. It doesn't mean that a whole network of, broadband connectivity is going to unveil like this miracle veil over the county in a year or even two. It's going to be probably a multi-year rollout, and they won the auction funding to serve census tracts that are not currently being served at FCC minimum guidelines. You can look up that map online. I'm happy, someone contacts me and wants a link to that map, it's all there. But I just, again, for the folks at home, I just think we're excited about it, and it's going to be a tremendous difference for us, but I do want to manage expectations that it does not mean it's a silver bullet and that everyone in the county who wants better service is going to get it. So.
Thank you. That is a great point. I appreciate that.
Well, I think the greatest point about it is that we're actually to the point that we're going to start putting the infrastructure in. That's what's important. That means that we're on our way. So that's what's important. So
It'll look like a mix of fixed wireless or fiber to the home too. So depending on where you are, we live in a rural community, so fiber may not be an option in your area. It might be fixed wireless. They might be able, this provider won the auction based off of what they said that they could do, and they got points for it and all that. And so that's where we come in as a county to subsidize what they said they were going to do for maybe a little more coverage or a little more fiber versus fixed wireless or a faster, that's what we have to negotiate come February.
right. And I think the biggest thing for us as commissioners, we got to realize is what Mr. Jones led off with, it's going to impact our budget. So we need to be prepared for that and support that. So thank you, Mr. Jones.
All right, thank you. Chair, the next item is one that we've tried to keep everyone updated on. This is one that we have been working on for more than 2 years, but certainly for the length of time that I have been here. And it's a complicated project. As you know, we are part of the Carlick Regional Water System. And I'm going to go ahead and brag a little bit because Warren County really, to me, was the basis for that system. And so we are a smaller owner at this point, but the plant is at the age where it needs to be upgraded and also expanded. And this project will allow all the partners to expand their capacity for treated water. And unfortunately, we have been talking about this project costing about $40 million. We were able to get to the point where bids were opened, and because of the date of when the estimates were put together versus where we are now, there was a significant difference. So the cost of the project has jumped from $40 million to approximately $57 million. And so that's a $17 million gap that we're going to have to try to figure out, not Warren County, but all the partners together. And so we expect that Oxford will get about a $6 million grant and loan. We will likely have to apply for the same later this spring, and then the city of Henderson will have to make up the balance. But this goes back to an earlier item that we talked about, which were in your strategic plan goals, we're looking at our water rates. And so this is one of those things that will impact that. And so one of the things that we think might be best is that we look at doing smaller increases over the next few years versus waiting and doing a larger increase at one time. But ultimately, we want to make sure that we are prepared to absorb the cost of this project going forward. So I'll stop there to see if there are any questions.
Any questions, concerns? We will be able to retain our allocation through this process. Is that correct?
Yes, that is what that would be the best option for us, is to retain our allocation. And so we would move from 2 million to 4 million gallons. That's the ultimate goal for us. Okay.
Mr. Jones, I'm sorry, I missed it. What was the reason behind the jump in the construction costs or the project costs?
Well, water plant construction is actually just very complicated. So there are limited people who can do it. And then with the pandemic, they have seen prices skyrocket, and it appears that we had an estimate that was just a bit off. It was really under what we were talking about. So when we were talking about that number, it was off from the very beginning. And so you add to that what happened during the pandemic and the limited amount of people who can provide this service, that's why you get the big difference. So ultimately, our initial estimate was off.
You good to go, Ms. Pierce?
Good.
I guess she's okay.
All right. The next, we have a couple items for you that we have called organizational development. And they are going to be some interesting items, or we just want to bring them to your attention. The first one is we appreciate what the board did in allowing us to have a compensation study done. And also, we actually were able to budget in this year the first step in implementing the results of that compensation study. So as you all know, the compensation study did find that we had a problem with competitiveness of our salaries for our county employees. The difference was significant enough that we knew we couldn't afford it in 1 year. And so what the board allowed us to do was to schedule implementation over 3 years. And we have been able to start this year, which means next year would be additional funds if we were to keep on going with that process. And so we wanted to make sure that we inform the board of that cost. That would be something that we would need to consider as well if we were to continue moving forward. The next item we have is emergency services. Our emergency services department is one of our larger departments that we have. And they have a complicated schedule called a fluctuating work week. It's complicated to administer. It is ultimately, it could be a safety issue for staff. And this is something that we wanted to take a look at for next year. The fluctuating work week means our staff works for 24 hours, they're off for 24 hours, they work for 24 hours. And a lot of modern emergency services or first responder organizations will operate on a 24/72 schedule, where they work for 1 day and then they are off for a few days, which allows them time to rest and recuperate and come back and pick up additional schedules. The issue with us, for us to be able to implement this, will actually increase the number of personnel that we have to hire. So there will be a budgetary impact to that. But the balance is we may be able to hire more people. It would possibly be paid for with some of the dollars that we have budgeted for overtime. And I want to be clear, this does not mean that overtime goes away. There's always going to be a need for overtime. But I'm just saying some of those dollars that we budget may help us to implement this new schedule that we have to be aware of. Our neighbors are using this schedule, Halifax County, Franklin County, Northampton, I think, as well. So areas around us are using this schedule. We don't use it, and I think Vance County does not use it. But I know they have asked us about whether or not we were. So this is something that we want to consider going forward.
Mr. John, how many people you looking to this is going to impact the employee?
There are a couple of different scenarios that EMS has to work on, but it would be anywhere from 3 to 8 additional people needed.
Okay.
Right.
All right. I'm gonna let you finish up now. I'll go through the whole organizational development thing.
Okay. All right. The last item I had was department reviews. And so what we wanted to do during this budget process was to let you all know and our departments know that we are going to be looking at our budget from a top to bottom review standpoint. which means we're going to have everyone justify everything that they have in their budget. I think we're at a point where we need to do that. The other part of that also is, as you know, Ms. Duncan is interim director of EDC, and that is a significant focus for the county. We don't have a staff person there as well. And so looking at that issue, I think it actually offers us an opportunity to look at some efficiency. And can we combine EDC with another area like planning? And so that is an idea that we'd like to consider, but I also want to get some feedback from you all. EDC and planning, for example, may be an option, but if we're looking at our operations overall, there could be very well opportunities to do that in other areas as well. And so I just wanted to let the board know that was our thought process, and see if you had any feedback or concerns with us looking at all of our organization to see where those opportunities may exist.
To answer your question, yes, you have my permission to look at all departments. You know, there are two things. If we can be more efficient, save money without limiting services. You know, I don't want to make adjustments and we reduce the services or the required services that citizens need. But yeah, I do encourage you to explore all of those possibilities.
Understood. Thank you. I think that was a great point.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on that, and like Commissioner Hunt said, yeah, look at all the department. I'm looking at the screen here, and I see all your department directors here, and I know they do a great job. But specifically talking about Ms. Duncan, she's been holding down what, 2 positions, actually 3, because you have an assistant now, don't you? Or you do? You know, I don't know. Sometimes. Yeah, but theoretically, you know, over the past few months or whatever, you know, we went from 2 full-time positions down to you doing a lot of the one stuff and also continuing your duties with the county manager. So I know that's a headache within itself, but like Mr. Hunt just said, you know, if we could look at the different ways of actually developing our staff without cutting services or have a total impact on services, that'd be great. So I'm really looking forward to see what it looks like for you, Mr. Jones. You definitely have my support to look at it holistically and see what it kind of looks like. So, Ms. Baker? I think it's a good idea. Ms. Powell? You good with that? Okay.
I don't have an issue with either.
I'm sorry, I forget.
Oh, it's fine.
I forget, I'm sorry. Ms. Pierce, you have anything? Okay. All right. I think Mr. Jones, just one other thing that and I knew, you know where I'm going with this. I had some, I had a direct impact with the planning and zoning. And that's one of them I really want you to take a look at too, because I don't want to go into detail how they do things or whatever. I think there could be some increase over there, because not saying those guys don't do a very good job, and they sure do. But if we're looking at expansion as far as the county and doing other things, we want to make sure that we have adequate personnel in place in order to get things done in a proficient and adequate manner.
Sure, thank you, Chair. If you don't mind, I just want to elaborate on that a little bit, because I know staff are on here and I don't want them to think that we are saying anything that's not positive. And so Mr. Davis's experience was the staff were busy and all preoccupied or out of the office. And so what that meant was there was concern about if they in fact need more assistance to be able to serve the public. And so that was the concern. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, actually, you broke the ice for me, because, you know, it was just a simple fact that, you know, I think we do them a disservice when they are not able to take time off and do certain things with their families or whatever they got going on in their lives and deal with county business, that we should have something in place that when they do take off, when they come, number one, the disservice of the county is not stopped. And number two, when they get back to work, they don't have an overload of work to get done, because I mean, they, what they do is very detailed, and which all of them do. But I was just saying from this particular experience that I had. So, but I appreciate it, Mr. Jones.
Chair, I do have one thing before we wrap up, and then the next section really is for you all as the board, now that you've heard this discussion, for you all to talk about what you'd like to have us consider going forward if we didn't cover anything today. But we have noticed, and I'm sure you all have noticed, NCDOT has had some reductions in their budget. And so they are not picking up litter as frequently as they have in the past. And so when you're traveling, not only here in the county, outside the county on a state road, you will notice that the litter is piling up. And so that is an issue that we want to consider as well. Do we need to budget some county funds to assist with litter pickup? And so right now, we have called DOT about the issue in the county, and they let us know that they will not be doing litter pickup until April.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a good point. And if she's up for it, Commissioner Pierce has always been our little sweet person that heads that up. And if it's okay with you all, I'd like to see if she wants to be engaged in that and see what we can do in the future. Ms. Pierce?
Absolutely. And it goes a lot of different ways. I know that it's Granville County that actually hires someone to do it. I'm a little leery about that, because the same people they hire could be the same people that trash it, because the more you trash it, the more they'll work or whatever. But they also have their employees who take off, they'll set aside a day or whatever, half a day, close the offices down if it's possible, or, work on a skeleton staff. And they go out and they clean a stretch of road, but it's completely voluntary. I don't know that we're having County Government Day this year. I know there was some signage that I had passed along before, and it was it grabbed your attention. It was part of the ones that we had put on our website before, saying, please don't litter or whatever. I think we need to really invest in something like that as well, because it is a problem. I mean, you look on these roads and it's nasty. And if we could bring the awareness, one of the efforts was try to engage kids so that they could tell their parents, don't do that or whatever. So it's definitely something that the county does need to take the lead on, and then just get other organizations involved. So yeah, I'm definitely willing to be involved with that effort.
Okay. Mr. Jones, when you were speaking of that, is that something that's, as far as we're going to be impactful in our budget this year, there's something that you had in mind that you want to get done? What were you thinking on that? Or just something that?
Not necessarily in the current year unless something comes up, but was thinking about going forward for the upcoming budget year.
Right. Of course, I agree with Ms. Pierce and yourself with something that we need to get done. Once we start doing something, the state say, oh, they got it now. We don't have to do it anymore. And it'll be another thing that we hit the budget on the county side, but we can't allow our county to become trashed either. So, Ms. Pierce, I'd like to see going forward with some of the things you may come up with, and address the rest of the board, some ideas that might be cost effective for us to go forward with.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead.
This trash situation is not just unique in Warren County. It's statewide. And part of the strategy, it seems like we should involve some of our state leaders to help address this problem, because our Representative Garrison and other state leaders, to see what we can do in terms of a comprehensive cleanup or litter control or whatever the case may be. Now, I do know one county, I think they had somebody in their sheriff department, a deputy, that would go and check trash. And if they could find anything in that trash that could identify who may have dropped it, they would go after them. I'm not saying that's what we should do, but I think that we should do what we can on the local level. But I think this situation is larger than just Warren County. And this is something that we should, like I said earlier, involve some of our state legislators to consider as well.
Thank you. Point taken.
Mr. Jones, I do have a question, a wrap-up question with that is, I noticed there was a correspondent and there were some volunteers that were picking up trash alongside the road. And those trash bags are still on the side of the road right now. So the state won't even come by and pick those up?
So no, they will pick those up.
Okay. Okay, they will pick them up.
They will pick those up.
Okay, all right.
They actually provide those bags, and they know when those orange bags are out, that they are to pick those up. Mr. Kingsbury actually had me out this weekend participating on the volunteer project.
Who did?
Mr. Kingsbury.
Oh, y'all were picking up trash
We
together?
did the same, absolutely.
I guarantee he was in the Hickory Grove community. You had the floor, Mr. Kingsbury.
A resident drive to my house last week and complained about the trash.
Drove to your house?
My house had complained about the trash, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Organization that I founded called Fatherhood Unlimited, geared at mentoring and providing community service and court diversion programs for Black youth.
Yes, sir.
Was involved in an MLK Day service project. And we have adopted very close on the way to Hicksboro, Vicksboro Road from 39 to Faulkner Road. And so we were involved, and I do thank County Manager Jones, who took time to come, as well as about 10 other volunteers to be engaged in litter cleanup. And the first thing I did this morning was call DOT and tell them to come get them back. So they do come get them back. They provide the bags, the vests, everything you need to do so. So that's something that if we can encourage our residents to adopt a highway, that's something that will help. Our plan is to adopt one in Warren County as well. I just wanted to get Vicksboro Road underway.
Understood, sir. Sir, can you repeat that organization you founded again, please?
It's called Fatherhood Unlimited.
Fatherhood Unlimited.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good. Thank you for your service. Thank you. All right. Mr. Jones, you good?
Yeah, that wraps up my comments, sir.
Okay. I want to go back to the board budget schedule for us. Is everyone okay with what's been presented for us? Ms. Pierce, so I won't forget you already. Are you okay with the budget schedule? You're muted. You're muted.
Okay, so the days are probably fine. We just gotta work out the times and stuff. So the days are fine though. The dates, rather.
Are y'all okay with afternoon times? I mean, that's how we've done them in the past, I guess, right? I'm sorry? Ms. Pierce, what's the earliest you can do?
It doesn't start until when? When is our first one again?
It's the 12th, isn't it?
The 12th of what? April or May? April, May?
Concerned with is the 12th and the 19th, right, Mr. Jones? The 12th and the 19th is what we are concerned with. Of course, June 7th, we usually have them at 6 o'clock anyway. So The work sessions are the ones that we're really concerned with, which is the 12th and the 19th.
You know what? For the first one, I'll probably find with the daytime or, the afternoon or something, and then we can just take it from there, I guess.
What you got, Mr. Jones? Yeah, that's Ms. Pierce. What's the earliest time that you can meet?
On the initial ones, well, just do 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. Will that work for everybody?
Yes. You okay?
Yeah. Me too.
Okay, we'll just do 2 o'clock and keep it like we've been doing it, so. Okay, sounds good. So we're gonna move this to our, for confirmation on our February 1st meeting that we're going to set this agenda as is, budget agenda as is, dates and the times associated with that. I just ask that when we do this, that we do have the exact times on there when we vote on it, so. All right, ladies and gentlemen, from what I'm seeing, we're at the end. Mr. Jones, if it's okay with you, I know you got your directors online here. I would like to open up the floor to them if they have anything they want to ask us about or talk to us about while we have them online here. The 13th?
No, February.
That is correct.
That's a Saturday. The 12th and 13th, Friday and Saturday. Not even work on Saturday.
Yeah, it is, it's on the 13th. But that doesn't include us anyway, does it?
Yeah, check it.
Okay. Well, Mr. Jones got y'all working on Saturdays.
I mean, well,
And the day before Valentine's Day. Mr. Jones, you run a tight ship here.
you saying me? You saying me, Sharon?
Okay, we're gonna move right along. Okay, Mr. Duncan, you just had to say something. Okay, okay. Like I said, Mr. Jones, respectfully, if any of your directors want to weigh in on anything, I'll open up the floor to them if they choose to do so before we wrap this thing up. Okay, I still see all red. I don't see anybody. Mr. Macon Roberts, his went away. He has something to say? Oh, his audio. Okay. Okay, I didn't. All right. So, Ms. Pierce, I'm gonna end with you. Must start and end with you, Ms. Pierce.
Nope, I'm good. I don't have anything.
Okay? Ms. Baker? Ms. Powell? Vice Chair?
Basically good. One thing that we need to consider, and I don't know where we are with the fund balance, but we want to make sure that is consistent with the policy that we established, if possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that concludes our budget goal setting work session. We thank y'all for coming out. Unless there is anything else, we are hereby adjourned. Take care.